Ready? Go.
Welcome back to Painting Lines. Last week we covered some exhibitions and other news topics, and this week, with the next gen finals rapidly approaching, we wanted to give our thoughts on this year's contestants and what we're kind of looking forward to with this event. So, Eric, let's just start it off with one thing that you're looking forward to or kind of like hoping to see in Jeddah.
Well, I can tell you, I'm looking forward to finally getting to see some high quality tennis because I'm sick of all these exhibition matches the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
Um, but in all seriousness, I'm hoping to see some redemption from Mickelson this year because he went 0-3 last year. But he's made significant improvements to his fitness. He's had a good season. And now I think he's one of the top contenders, if not one of the favorites to win this, which is exciting to see. Another thing, I'm also pretty curious about the quality from match to match here. I just feel like there's a pretty big discrepancy in the talent between like the sophomore guys who have been on tour type of players and then the ones who are just getting started.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'll get into that a little bit when I'm going through the players, but if you look at the top four guys that qualified and then you look at the second four, it's a pretty big jump, at least in terms of ranking.
I was gonna say, I think those top four guys, that's where the majority of the like intensity and the focus, who's gonna win, is probably gonna be.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
But
like two
also, I
separate
mean,
groups.
you look last year, who won?
Yeah,
Medjedovic won,
Medjedovic. Uh-huh.
and he wasn't the favored guy, so anything can happen.
Yeah, you're right. That's why they play the matches, right? Otherwise, if it was up to the rankings, no need to play.
Exactly, exactly. But anyway, you ready to hop into these players?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so up first is Artur Fils. Uh,
There we go.
ATP's number 20 right now, so obviously pretty established on the tour already. He has three titles, two of which were this year, so I'd say he's a pretty heavy favorite coming into this tournament. He was also the favorite last year, though, and he ended up losing in the final match. So I know there's not that much to say about him because we already kind of know him, whereas the other guys we don't necessarily know as much, but definitely a favorite in this tournament.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you announced a couple weeks ago that he was gonna be playing in this, I was kind of surprised. I just thought that he had outgrown this and that this was, kind of beneath him, but I guess not. It's a great opportunity and he's still young, so why not?
Yeah, and I mean, you also got to do like the money motivation aspect. Like they get a massive chance at prize money here. They're getting paid a lot, and it's not an ATP points sort of thing. So it doesn't matter for their ranking, and you're just getting paid. It's almost like an exhibition to an extent.
Yeah. I mean, what do you have to lose here?
Exactly.
Other than I guess in his case, it could be, losing to a very low ranked player. Could be bad for confidence, but at the end of the day, it's worse not to play.
Yeah. Um. Then let's move on to number two, the guy that you were just talking about, Alex Mickelson. He is now the number two ranked guy in this tournament. He's number 41 in the ATP rankings right now. And like you said, he's also a guy that's pretty established now. He turned pro last year and he played almost exclusively tour level events this year. He didn't have a title this year, but was a finalist in two tournaments. And he also collected some big wins this year. He beat Fritz and beat Deminar. So beat a couple of top 10 guys. And another interesting fact about Mickelson is he's actually the first of three Americans in the event this year. So I'm just looking forward to see what he can do this year. Hopefully, like you said, collect a win at least.
Yeah, at least it was funny in some social media content that I was watching. He goes, it's kind of hard not to do better than what I did last year. So, like, he's coming in really with no pressure because he can't underperform. I mean, he can do the same as what he did last year, but he can't do worse.
It's true, but to an extent, it would be probably more underperforming this year, where he's one of the top guys that's expected to do well. Whereas last year, he was a little bit more of like a guy that wasn't known when he was coming into it as much. You know what I mean?
Totally. And he, like I said before, he's improved so much on his fitness. Apparently, he did not really emphasize fitness before this. Like, it really wasn't his priority. Now, at the beginning of the year, got a full-time physio. He gained 20 pounds of muscle, like, really worked on his agility. And I think because before he was what is he, 6'5", so he's lanky. He didn't move well around the court, and I think that was part of, his 0-3 run here. So I think having built up on his game now with the fitness, I think he's got a way better shot this year too.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I feel like that just comes with being a professional, right? Like to an extent, last year he was a professional player. He turned pro, but it wasn't like he was really fully there. Like he didn't turn pro until halfway through the year. So these things like having a physio like full time and the fitness plan, they don't necessarily exist when you're just an amateur player, even if you're playing at a very high level. So once you turn pro, you start to kind of build and gaining things like a defined fitness plan can be pretty helpful for sure.
Yeah, and it is crazy to see. Like, I don't even want to. Would you say Alcaraz and Sinner are early bloomers as far as fitness? Like, I would say Alcaraz is, but if you look at Sinner, his transformation over the last year and a half, like he also gained a lot of muscle and he's kind of filling out his man body where he's, before when he first came on tour, he looked frail, like skinny, just kind of like a boy. And I feel like Mickelson is going through that transition now. And it's crazy to see when he's like 26, 27, when he's actually stopped growing. That's when he, may reach his full potential. Like I see him being a late bloomer.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this is an under 20 event, so I don't even think we have to look that far for seeing his development. In terms of Alcaraz and Sinner being early developers, I think it's just more that their skill was higher, to be honest, early on, and that's really what elevated them to where they are now.
Yeah. So you're saying their skill was higher, so then they were able to make a breakout earlier, which then enabled them to build the team, build the physio, and then make those strength gains earlier on.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like that. It just builds. It's like the
Yeah.
snowball that effect, right? Going down the slope. It's like if you're if Mickelson had been number 50 in the world 3 years ago, then he would have already had a physio probably 2 years ago. And then by this year, he would be even further along, right? So it just builds and builds and builds.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, let's move on to the number three guy here. So this is a guy we talked about a few times this year, Jakob Mensik. So he is the ATP number 48 now. Really just exploded onto the scene this year and had some massive wins. A couple of standouts were the fact that he beat Rublev and Dimitrov twice, including twice in the same tournament near the end of the year in Shanghai. Uh, just an impressive job this year from a guy that really last year I had knew nothing about.
Yeah, I think he might have had one of the fastest ascensions. I think he was ranked outside the 700s, but to me, this is the guy that I see as the most likely to win a slam. I mean, I think he just has such a complete game. He's got a massive serve. He's got a strong forehand and backhand. Like he's not a player that you could really pick on one of their shots as a weakness. And he can play at the baseline. He can come up and be aggressive, finish off points. So I'm really excited. I think he potentially has a better chance than Mickelson to win this. Like theoretically, I think it's gonna be between he and Feast.
So you think that he has a better chance of winning a Grand Slam than Fees?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Yeah.
I do.
That's an interesting one. I mean, he is only 1 year younger than Fees, so that's kind of an interesting point to me. But I guess, like I said, the 1 year can make a big difference. So
Y-
maybe we'll see where he's at this time next year.
Yeah, yeah. I just think, obviously Feast is a phenomenal player, but I think it's gonna be harder for him to break into the top 10 than it was for him to break into the top 20.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable assumption. I think that's kind of the normal, right? Like
Right.
a lot the points just go up massively the higher up you get. So
Hmm.
but yeah, I definitely think Mensik has a lot of potential for sure. But anyway, let's move on to the number four guy. So this is the last guy in the top 50 of these guys, and that's Junshin Shang. Hopefully, I pronounced that okay. They also call him JC on some of the websites.
Yeah, I've heard
But
Jerry as well.
Jerry, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know that one, but either way, he had a great year this year. won a title in Chengdu where he actually beat Musetti in the final. So that's a massive performance. He also had a couple of 5-set battles against top players in slams. So against Rude, he went 5 sets at the U.S. Open, and then at Wimbledon, he went to 5 sets with Dimitrov. So shows that he can compete with these highest level guys and can also perform in the clutch by winning this title in Chengdu.
Yeah, he's also making history too. Pretty cool story. He was actually the first Chinese player to win on home soil, to win a title on home soil. So, if you can only imagine what that has done to the sport of tennis in China, especially yeah, in a country of how large China is, I feel like it's just going to be great. Like it's going to kind of explode, create a lot of hype. Plus, I just think he's a cool guy too. He's very likable. I don't know if you've seen videos with him, but he's very well put together, and I'm very excited for his future.
Yeah. He's a very nice looking game too, to be honest. Like very
Hmm.
lefty, but he's very fundamental game and very compact. Doesn't do anything super crazy with his form, but gets it done. Yeah, I mean, speaking on the Chinese players, I mean, we also have Xi Jinping doing pretty well this year. So a couple of Chinese players that are up in at least like the top 50 range.
Yeah, yeah. Shang reminds me like kind of Deminar, just the way how he moves and covers the court. Like I think he is one of the fastest players on tour.
Yeah, I
Shang.
mean, maybe we'll see in this if they do the combine again.
I really hope they do. He's explosive.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was the top four guys, and like I said, there's kind of a big jump here to the next four. The first guy outside the top 50 is Lerner Tien. He was the number 5 guy. He's the ATP number 122, and he actually only had half as many points, or actually less than half the amount of points that JC Shang had this year. And you can just look in the tournaments they played too. Like he played mainly ITF futures and challengers. Uh, but one thing about Tien was that when he got really hot. From the end of May through mid July, he actually had a 28 match win streak during which he won 5 tournaments in a row. So kind of was just dominating these smaller tourneys all year, did very well in them, but didn't have that many massive wins. I mean, his biggest win was probably beating Morojan in Winston-Salem, but on that lower level of like tournament, the challengers, the ITF tournaments, he was doing very well.
Yeah, I can't really tell you much about him, but I can tell you how he got his name, which is a pretty funny story. Are you aware or no?
Tell me.
No, so his mom is a math teacher, and they named him after her profession, like learner. And he has a sister named Justice. So I was wondering, named after her father's
He's
profession.
a
So I was
lawyer.
wondering, he is a lawyer. Yes.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah, they were just like, learner.
Learner and
Okay.
Justice. Let's
That's
do it.
that's pretty funny.
Are
Yeah.
you gonna, you're gonna name your kid podcaster?
Yeah, exactly. Host.
Yeah, host. But oh, another funny story. So I don't know if you guys remember, but probably about a month ago, he or my news of the week was the shortest tennis match of all time, Bernard Tomic. It was 39 minutes. Well, that was against the learner. And so he actually won that Fairfield Challenger, that title in that match.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
39
it was
minutes
funny.
is
Tomic just
insane.
arguing with his girlfriend the whole time during the match, like
Crazy
accusing
that
her
that
of,
didn't like delay it at all.
right? He just like did not care.
Tomic is
39
insane
minutes,
though.
one match.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And yeah, and Lerner is the second American of the 3 Americans in this tournament. But moving on, the number 6 guy that qualified is Luca Van Ash. Uh, Honestly, we haven't really talked about him since this event last year. He's number 128 right now, but actually, when this event happened last year, he was much higher ranked. And I think he kind of petered out this year. Like last year, he was playing very well. And then even at the start of this year, too, he made the third round of the Australian Open, where he actually beat Musetti in the second round, too. So that's a pretty big win. But since then, he's kind of just struggled. Hasn't really been putting together that many challenger runs and struggled to make it out of qualies in a bunch of events. So Not the easiest path for him this year, but I'll be interested to see if he can kind of return to that level we saw last year and early this year.
Yeah, I mean, he just doesn't really have many weapons. Like there's nothing crazy that sticks out to you about his game. He doesn't hit particularly hard. He's just kind of like a sound player, and I feel like maybe he's getting into too much of a rhythm where he's not going outside of his comfort zone and trying to be more aggressive.
Yeah, that could 100%. That can happen to a player, especially when they get a little bit of success, and then they're like, maybe I just have to keep doing the same thing rather than
Hmm.
maybe change.
Well, another thing, I just found out after doing some research that he's a university student and he's studying mathematics, which is obviously very hard. So I think maybe going to college, going to university has kind of taken away from his tennis game because I don't know any other guys at this level that are also going to college.
Yeah, I mean it's borderline impossible to do that. So
Yeah, so I honestly kudos to him. That's incredibly impressive.
100%, 100%. Anyway, let's move on to the number seven guy here, which is Nishesh Basavareddy. He's the ATP number 138. By the way, Van Ash is number 128. I'm not sure if I said that earlier, but Basavareddy is number 138, and he's honestly the one guy on this list that I had never heard of. Uh, and he's also the only player that didn't play in a single tour level match this year. So that may be contributing to why I hadn't heard of him before. But this dude has just been grinding in the challengers this year. He made 7 challenger finals this year, of which he won 2. But just the fact that he was able to make that many challenger finals shows that he is getting consistent success, at least against kind of that tier 2 challenger level guy. But overall, I'm just interested to see him play. I haven't really watched that many of his matches, I'd say, and he didn't really have any big wins this year. I think the highest ranked guy I saw he beat was a guy just inside the top 100, but I'll definitely be interested to see him play.
Yeah, I actually have heard of him before, but only through word of mouth. It was, probably a month or two ago, one of my friends mentioned it. And the only reason it clicked was because when I looked him up, I saw he went to Stanford, and I remembered, oh, this guy, they were talking about a Stanford player. But I think this goes back to what Eubanks said on the Served podcast, on Andy Roddick's podcast, that sometimes it's better to just grind out those challengers and build up the confidence, win titles, and then move up to the tour and start playing. Because, I think this is much more beneficial, like his scenario, than going on tour and losing every week.
Yeah, I mean, you look at kind of where what Van Ash did
Van
this year,
Ash,
where
exactly.
he kind of struggled in most of his tournaments, but was able to stay at least decently ranked. But yeah, it's definitely tough. The difference is just in terms of pay. Like he made
Hmm.
7 challenger finals and won 2, whereas other guys, like I think Fonseca, who didn't get as many points, we'll talk about next, I think actually earned a lot more money because of the couple tournaments he did well on that were actually tour level.
Right, right. And this is the third American, right?
Yeah, the third and final American.
Third and final. That's crazy. Three Americans in this.
Yeah, 3 Americans and 2 Frenchmen. So
Yeah, stacked up.
yep. And then the last guy here is, like I said, João Fonseca, who is number 145. And he's actually the youngest guy to qualify because he's only 18. Uh, and he actually beat Thies earlier in the year in Rio. And that actually may have been a factor in him turning pro because we actually talked to Rohan in an earlier episode. He's a tennis agent, and he talked about how Fonseca was a guy that was considering going to college, but then ended up turning pro after finding some success on the tour. Had a few nice wins this year, but wasn't as consistent as guys like Nishesh or Lerner on the lower circuits. So it was up and down for him. But like I said, that worked out financially for him.
Yeah, that Rio quarterfinal result was 100% the reason why he decided to go pro and not go to college because he was committed to UVA. And I was watching a video and he was saying after a result like that, it's kind of hard to go to college. And he had previously won the boys or the juniors US Open. So all the stars were starting to align for him. And I feel like he was just anxious to get out there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think we talked about that with guys like Sam Querrey when we had him on. I think he was like thinking about college, and then he was like, I started to do well, and was like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Like, why delay your career? Why risk an injury? Why forego earnings? It just doesn't really make sense.
100%. 100%. But anyway, that kind of wraps up the little preview of these guys. And we'll be excited to see how they do coming up later this month in Jeddah. I think the tournament starts on December 18th, right?
Yeah, yeah, it does. Jeddah. So Jeddah too. I wonder how long they have the tournament for, right? Because you know how, for example, Turin just re-signed for another 5 years.
I
Let
mean,
me see.
I don't think they're going to run out of money in terms of being
Right?
able
The
to
the
hold on to the.
PIF.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a common theme I've noticed with all these guys when just kind of researching them, looking into, specific footage like Road to Jeddah, the main thing that these guys were saying is how much of a result here means. Like, for example, Sinner, he has won this tournament, Alcaraz, like Tsitsipas. So you take a lot of the guys who are in the top 10 and then look how they did in next gen final, and it's kind of like a crystal ball almost of like how you're going to do. So these players, they want to have a big result so they can like kickstart their career because it's a catalyst essentially.
Yeah. And it's a big payday.
Big payday. Yeah. Can't
I mean,
hurt.
then again, like there's also like not trying to like have a negative thing towards Nakashima, but like Nakashima won it, and
Yeah.
he's not in the top 10 right now. I mean, he's not like he's been playing poorly. He definitely has a great year this year, but he's not. It's not like 100%. You're going to be a top five guy if you win this tournament.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a good point. And I think this has more of a future predictor than the junior slams, right? Like if you win a junior slam, I don't think it's obviously impressive, but I don't think it says a lot about your career because I think it's still way too young to tell. Whereas this is 20 years old, like the juniors is 18. So a lot can happen in those 2 years.
But anyway, you ready to hop into I guess our one segment this week, right? Because we don't
Yeah,
really have a match or a bet.
I know. Yeah, let's do it. Hey guys, before we jump in, we have some exciting news. We recently partnered with TruePro. They're a great place to buy strings, grips, and tennis apparel. Use discount code Painting Lines, that's one word, for 20% off store wide. You can find the link in our bio.
Alrighty, what's new in tennis? What'd you see this week?
So I saw Andy Murray's mom, Judy. She took a dig at Tennis Scotland. So Tennis Scotland was in the process of building an Andy Murray Legacy Center, but the plans got scrapped. They blamed it on rising costs and planning issues. And Judy essentially said that they squandered her son's legacy. This was an opportunity to have a community tennis center, and they essentially dropped the ball. And then I'm going to give you one of her quotes from this article. I don't have any confidence in the leadership of Tennis Scotland, and that's a major reason for me not to get involved in anything else here. And she's pissed because apparently they did nothing for his 10-year anniversary from when he won Wimbledon, and they did nothing for his retirement. So, I mean, I can see why she's pissed. This would have been a great opportunity to really hone in on Murray's legacy and, grow the game of tennis in Scotland. Sorry, Scotland.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
Andy Murray.
I I don't know. I think that yeah, they obviously screwed up if they were planning on doing it and then it got scrapped halfway through or however far through. But I also don't know whether condemning it like how it helps. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. She's very outspoken in the sport and she's an influential person too. So it's clearly news that is worthy.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just one of those things where it feels like sometimes it's not beneficial to like make a negative comment about someone that screwed up.
Yeah, like she's burning bridges.
Yeah, it's like burning bridges, but it's like yeah, when they do something wrong and you call them out for it, it probably doesn't incentivize them to like make it better.
Right. And I wonder if how much Andy actually cares about this too. Like if it's just his mom who's pissed or because he hasn't
Yeah,
said much.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, either way, no community center, no Andy Murray Legacy Center.
Bummer.
All right, what about you? What did you see this week?
Well, I saw an article that actually came out like I think a week or two ago, but it was just an interesting thing because I had a quote from Medvedev where he called his season a 6.5 out of 10. And I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on his evaluation of the season because to me that implies that this was an above average season for him, right? If the average is 5 out of 10.
Hmm.
And I mean, you just look at what he did this year. He was trophyless for the first time since 2017. He really struggled against like some of the top guys, like could not beat Sinner. Obviously, beat him the one time, but could not really deal with him on a consistent basis. He did make the one Grand Slam final at the Australian Open, but overall, I wouldn't really consider this one of his above average seasons because I think when you look at where he was coming into the season, which I think is something you do have to consider, he was on a much higher sort of platform in terms of, oh, Medvedev, when he comes into a tournament, he's a real threat to win it. Whereas now it's like, oh, if Sinner or Alcaraz is in the tournament, you really just expect him to lose to one of them.
Hmm. I guess I'm looking at it a little differently than you are. I think he would set the bar at like an average season being a 7. So I think he's thinking a 6.5 is below average. Like if you just do this, put in the work, maybe don't win a title, but you're still ranked within the top 8 at the end of the year. It's like, all right, 6.5. If you win a slam, maybe 10 out of 10. If you win a couple masters, 9 out of 10. So I think he's still discounting his season. I just don't think it's 5 is like the average here.
Huh.
Yeah. All right, and that's the show. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Painting Lines Podcast. Feel free to shoot us a DM or email us any questions or thoughts at paintinglinespodcast@gmail.com.